This is WVBN, reporting from the United States. A lucky sailor was saved from serious injury after falling from the top of USS Quincy when his belt was mysteriously caught in midair. After being helped down by the rest of the crew, the belt was passed around as a good luck charm. Quincy and the rest of the Atlantic battle fleet set sail towards the Canary Islands. Near their target, they engaged a sizable Morgana force with assistance from a nearby French fleet, but were forced to withdraw due to the endless waves of Morgana vessels. USS Babbitt volunteered to stay behind and draw fire after her engines were knocked out by the attack, allowing Texas and the others to escape. The fleet continued west, and after scouts detected Morgana presence, turned in a northern direction to avoid them and returned to the United States as quickly as possible. The fleet was unable to avoid a raging storm spotted to the southwest, raging and roiling in unnatural violet color. The fleet had prepared and was stocked up on supplies to take on whatever lay at its heart. The bells of the fleet were prepared to face their Morgana foe. A voice called out from the storm, demanding that her children return what they had stolen. Before further information could be found, swarms of murderers backed up by Morgana attack aircraft engaged the American fleet. Wichita and Hamilton led the defense, cutting down vessel after vessel. After the first skirmish, Leary returned to look for survivors, but found nothing in the waters. Soon after, the fighting continued and the source of the mysterious tool belt was answered. The Belle of Quincy awoke to take command of the haggard vessel, coordinating repairs and fire control. Quincy's turrets fired off shell after shell into the dark storm, and the mysterious voice roared in pain. The Morgana attacks let up, and allowed the American fleet to regroup and coordinate fire onto Quincy's target. The unknown Morgana began another attack, this time targeting Yorktown. The attacks were more erratic, more desperate, as aircraft rammed into the deck of Yorktown and the turret of Wichita. As the battle raged on, a woman's voice cleared through the chaos. The storm clouds began to falter, and the form of a sin took shape, the source of the endless aerial attacks. Gunfire continued to pummel her, but just as she was beaten, one final wave of attack aircraft made to drop torpedoes on Quincy. The Belle yelled for all hands to brace, and vanished in a blinding light just as the torpedoes were about to make contact. The storm was dispelled and calm returned to the waters. In the aftermath, the remainder of the Atlantic Fleet was able to reach America, where they found Quincy and her captain in Massachusetts, already working on repairs for her next assignment. Though there was a significant cost, the Atlantic battle fleet had reached home. Wichita, however, was spotted leaving in the direction of Norfolk, where the US was conducting their Morgana research, and where Maryland lay chained. A brief glimpse reported that Maryland had manifested her Belle next to Wichita for a secretive conversation. The North Pacific battle fleet left San Francisco on March 9th, after careful selection of vessels by the Navy. The fleet would meet up with Boise and New Orleans before traveling to the Philippines. As the fleet passed through the remnants of the Golden Gate Bridge, the residents of San Francisco came out in force to wish them off, showering the fleet in flowers, confetti, and candy. As the ships and bells left the harbor, the cheers of the people of San Francisco could be heard for miles. The fleet soon met up with Boise and New Orleans, adding Salt Lake City, Saratoga, and Lexington to the formidable force of bells. The fleet made their way to Honolulu without incident over the following 2 days, a longer trip than necessary, but one Rear Admiral Reed was willing to take to ensure that they reached their destination safely, as they were also ferrying General Douglas MacArthur to his new diplomatic and military posting in the Far East. MacArthur rode aboard Boise, where his presence significantly boosted the morale of both the crew and her Belle, who enjoyed listening to the general's stories of war and the American frontier. As the days passed, Admiral Reed was able to avoid the majority of Morgana patrols, but a squadron of destructions spotted the fleet. West Virginia and Salt Lake City were able to quickly dispatch the Morgana, and skillful maneuvering by Reed ensured the fleet arrived safely at Pearl Harbor. The state and national governments met to formalize the creation of a Navy National Guard after months of work. This would be a new naval auxiliary force formed in the wake of the previous months of attacks, after recognizing an unforeseen need that the national structure of the Navy could not be expected to fulfill. Though some senators feared this Naval National Guard would be quickly federalized, states were allowed to retain direct control of these new units for the time being. In the event of a major attack, however, it was understood that the Federal Navy would assume command of any naval forces by the state. This new force would now begin a long process of organization and training. From the United States, this has been WVBN.